I get to turn the tables on our next guest, Evan Singer. He's very involved in golf, has his own podcast called The Par Train. And Evan, it's so nice for me to be pitching the questions to you this time. How are you?
I'm good. It's always fun being on the other side.
It
I
is.
don't have my episode outline up. I just can take the questions in and see where the answers fly.
Episode outline. Are we supposed to have one of those things? Right.
We all have our own processes.
Yeah, yeah, more about Evan in a minute. Hey, cool topic. We're talking about lessons you've learned from some of the best coaches. And like me, you've interviewed thousands. Um, but then you said to me, I got a couple lessons I've learned the hard way. So I want to know one lesson about golf that you've learned the hard way.
Yeah, the first one is a little odd.
Okay.
I came up with the concept a few years ago, but I used an analogy from the casino that helps me think about golf in a more productive way.
Okay.
I act like golf is a game of chance, not a game of skill. And everyone listening will be like, well, clearly it's a game of skill. But I guess I would ask the question, is that serving you? Is that belief helping you? Because I don't know about you, Mark, but every PGA Tour pro, Corn Ferry pro, LPGA pro coach that I talk to uses language like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then let's see what happens, right? I'm going to give myself the best chance. I'm going to play the percentages. And they all talk about chance. They don't talk about guarantees. So then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, well, what happens when I play blackjack and I lose? I start second guessing. I say it's a game of skill because I've got the book and I'm making decisions, right? Hitting on 18, not a great move, right? Hitting on 13 when the dealer's showing 16,
Bad
not
move.
a great move,
Okay.
right? So let's say I do one of those things and I lose money. It's easy for me to go back and judge myself and feel down because I made decisions that reflected poorly in my results. It's a game of skill, and my decisions led to my demise, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Now, imagine what happens when I'm playing roulette. Okay,
Yeah.
how do I feel after I play roulette? Yeah, I just had a bad hour,
Exactly right.
bad run. Nothing really hit, but I can't control the ball on the wheel. It's a game of chance,
Exactly.
right? So I got really fascinated with this idea of tying my golf game to my skill level, which we all do, right? I'm a 8 handicap right now. I've been a 5, 2, and 8 for the last 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Comparing my performance to my handicap, i.e., treating my game like it's a game of skill, therefore I should do X, really leads to a lot of my struggles and disappointments and frustration because I tie everything I'm doing to my identity versus if I treat it like a game of chance. I look back more so to my choices, my routines, but at the end of the day, I gave it my best and sometimes the ball bounces in weird ways and I don't tie it to myself as much. So that was an interesting learning that has really helped take some pressure off. It's a game of chance, not a game of skill. How can I improve my chances?
Brilliant. And the acquisition and the honing of said skill only heightens your chances. It never guarantees anything, in my
Right.
experiences.
Right.
Hmm. But unlike blackjack, where you kind of know the laws that you should play by, and you can break those laws once in a while and perhaps get lucky, but you're stacking the odds against you. In this instance here, um, you could do it's like you say, you could do all the right things and then still have the horrid day because
For
just
sure.
happens.
But it's funny how, let's say, Mark, I follow the book and I lose $100 in the first 10 minutes. I don't feel as bad as making decisions to try and change the outcomes that are out of the ordinary, right? Say hitting the hero shot, trying to get a bogey back, trying to aim at a pin, right? Going against the script. So much easier to judge myself after that than playing the book and just increasing my chances, right? It's easier it's an easier pill to swallow.
Okay, I'm thinking while you're talking and all the points you make are so savvy, but you jog in my mind here. And if we are honestly true to this, because here recently we've had Scott Fawcett on, and he's the ultimate algorithmic golf guy with Decade. Um, the only 100% shot there is in the game is basically the what 1.5 foot, maybe 2 foot putt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's failure, and I use that term loosely, involved with everything from farther away from the target. If
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it like you're saying here, which is the reality of it, maybe that should unshackle us and maybe lower the pressure some. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if our whole goal is to increase our chances and and look, easier said than done. Trust me, I get it. As good as well as anyone, I know what it's like to get swept up in expectations, embarrassment, swing mechanics, swing tweaks, positions, all that mess, right? But if I go into it, if I think about my best rounds ever, it all kind of follows that same formula of, okay, well, I'm most comfortable here. I'm very comfortable with the choice. I'm therefore very committed. I'm aiming at a place that favors where my misses usually are, even though I have two-way misses like most amateur players. And I'm looking at what my spots are. I'm hitting to the middles of greens. Like that's percentages. Now, we did a whole podcast on this. I was shocked that Rory talked about after winning at Pebble how he was letting the intoxication of wowing the crowd make him play not bo- he was almost addicted to exciting golf. And I noticed it the first time at Pinehurst at the US Open is the first time I really heard Rory McIlroy embrace the quote boring golf, right? Not necessarily always needing to hit the high drop, amazing drives that he's known for, hitting more stingers, whether it's with the driver or irons or woods, aiming to the middles of greens. He actually admitted I'm going to play a little bit more like Scotty Scheffler, is essentially what he said. I'm going to limit mistakes and I don't need to play hero golf.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right, folks, that is the wisdom there of one Evan Singer, who's the host of the Power Train podcast, one of the coolest voices in golf podcasting, just mind you. Quickly, Evan, before we get into the bulk of the conversation, give us the whistle stop, the bio as you just want to take us through your journey to where you are right now, please.
Yeah, so I guess I was the kid that was embarrassed to tell people that I was walking at Barnes and Noble and Borders books when that was a thing and buying self-help books and hiding it in my bag at 16 and not telling anyone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that. And since I was 16, um, I was reading every book you could get your hands on how our mind works. And I went from a really insecure kid. I was a super late bloomer, 5'2" height wise as a freshman in high school. Now I'm 5'11". So I grew 4 or 5 inches in college. And so I was pretty insecure. And, I quickly became known for like being this super positive person. And people were like, how are you so positive all the time? And so I attribute it to a lot of that work. And, I have a coach and I've been reading and studying and working on myself for a very long time. I'm 37 now, so a long time. Um, but we started the show, my co-host Matt and I really, I just had a listener reach out, and sorry, my baby boy's crying in the background if you can
Can't
hear it,
even
but
can't even hear him. You're good. You don't need to go and tend to the newest addition to the Singer family, do you?
no, my wife seems to have it, but
The
it's
hero.
definitely a new skill that I have to learn of being able to put together thoughts when I'm hearing the little man cry his eyes out. But anyways, it was I just had a listener reach out to us. He was looking for mental coaching, which I do as well. And he said to me, I think really sums up the par train. He was like, look, I've listened to a lot of other shows, nothing against those shows, but those other shows sound like a psychologist talking about golf. your guys' show sounds like golfers talking about psychology,
Yeah.
right? So I think I'm the more relatable one because I'm the 8 handicap and I've done every mistake you could ever imagine. Whereas my co-host played in college, D1, was a premier amateur in Illinois,
Hmm.
comes from a family of 4 boys, all played D1 college golf. So he's more the purist and he comes at it from like a course management standpoint where I come at it from more of the, I have the mental training, but also I feel like a mental midget as well. So I have to battle my knowledge with my own tendencies. And I think a lot of times people's experience with our show is the first time they even think about the mental side of the game. But really, the job is to help people get out of their own way and enjoy this game that we say we love so much. Bob Rotella told us on the show, look, if you only enjoy golf when you're playing well, you don't actually love the game. You have to enjoy all of it. And so that's the job of our show is to help people enjoy the ride and get out of their own way.
And it is very good, folks. I've been on lots of shows before, and the questions Evan would ask, oftentimes a lot of the question answerers kind of just say what we want to say anyway, despite the question. Your questions gave me pause, every single one of them, and I
Hmm.
enjoyed joining with you. As I listened back to it, I was like, I wish we could do it over because the questions you pitched me got my mind going so fast that I felt like I had verbal diarrhea trying to get all this stuff out. Anyway, but this is a different time. Now the spotlight's on you. I get to turn the microphone, as we said. So you've shared the casino analogy. It's a game of chance more than a game of skill. I couldn't agree more. I feel like Tiger Woods did a disservice to people where he said, I had complete control of my golf ball today. That's BS. Nobody has
Yeah.
complete control of the golf ball. If you did, well, maybe he wasn't aiming at the hole all the time, but you'd be hitting the thing in the hole most of the time.
Right.
So anyhow, so that's just an aside. You have 5 lessons learned from the best coaches, and you've featured just legends on your show, as I fortunately have as well. Let's kick this off.
Okay.
4 of these guests I've had, one I haven't, and that's Joe Parent from Zen Golf.
Hmm.
So, what was the lesson you learned from Joe?
That's ironic because that's the number one lesson that I start with anyways. So that was a perfect segue.
Well, I'm a pro.
Um, so Dr. Joe Parent, the author of Zen Golf, was actually that was the first mental game book I read. I read that when I was 16, and it made me realize, wow, golf can help me cement all these things I'm reading about for my mind in everyday situations. So it really was a life changer for me. I don't know if I'd be the host of the Par Train without Dr. Joe's book. That's
Okay.
first. But he said something, he's such a great, is that even a word to call someone an analogist? Is that a
Yeah,
word?
yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Works
So
for me.
let's say he's a great analogist, right? And he asked me, he says and I did this live at a talk I did at my father-in-law's club. I said, put this shot glass in the middle of the table, and it's only a good shot if you make the quarter in the shot glass. So toss the quarter in the shot glass, and if you make it, it's a good shot.
Okay.
And what do people do? They usually become like really guidey
Yes.
and they try and like get it perfect. They almost try and guide the quarter to the shot glass.
Mm-hmm.
Then you say, okay. And obviously it bounces off the table and runs long and all of the. And then he says, okay, land it anywhere on the table
Mm-hmm.
and it's a good shot. Aim at the shot glass, but anywhere on the table is a good shot. And the lesson there, and everybody got the result was total freedom.
Yes.
And I realized it's Joe's analogy, but it's the lesson that I've heard from every tour pro I've ever interviewed, and I'm sure you've heard it and maybe even talked about it. It's aggressive swings to conservative targets,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it really is, when I think about my greatest rounds, that's what I'm doing. I'm able to swing aggressively because I feel like the target and the club and the shot I'm trying to play, this goes back to the first lesson we talked about, gives me the best chance. And therefore, I'm not tentative, I'm not guidey. I'm playing the percentages, but I'm swinging aggressively. And Dr. Joe's analogy of the quarter on the table is really life-changing for a lot of people that have never heard it?
Well, I guess the follow-up to that would be that our idea of what a good shot is morphs a little bit. You know,
Hmm.
what good shot is a solidly struck shot where it's anywhere on the green. Where sometimes it's almost like, would you agree that maybe us golfers are have the expectations a little too high and our idea of a good shot is a little flawed? Because the reality of it is, if you're just looking at data, if you're taking a PGA Tour player's average, if they hit it inside anywhere inside of 30 feet, that's a good shot. So,
Yeah.
so changing our idea of what a good shot represents allows us to be in this place, right?
Oh, for sure. And I've heard, I think Lou Stagner's told me this. Scott Fawcett said something like this. Like, if you're able to get the club on the back of the ball and you have a view of the green, that's a good drive,
Yeah. Hmm.
right? It's not a fairway. If you can get to the green, it's a good drive.
So true.
And and that's something that I don't think a lot of us, really think about. I think I forget who it was. Someone once told me, and maybe you're partially responsible for this, Mark, because you're on the broadcast, but I'll give you a pass. We're not only watching the best players in their highlight reels, we're watching the best players play their best golf
Yes.
on the afternoon on Sundays.
Hmm.
And that is not real. That is a level above a level above a level. I've seen scratch golfers play. It is not even close to what those tour pros are able to do.
Okay. I want to share this and then we'll put a bow on this and move on to that you speak of. Because you're absolutely right. I've always said it's only a bad shot if the next shot comes out of your hand and with a penalty stroke.
Mm,
Okay. Otherwise, if you can advance the ball, the shot was not maybe not great, but it's usable. As long as you're going
yeah.
forward, penalty shot, as if your next shot's a penalty shot, then it was a bad shot. Anyhow, to that thing about the golfers I get to watch. Many years ago, my younger brother won the South African Open. He's first of two wins in a row. And the final holes is long par four, long slender green, water left, and short of it back hole location. He drove it down the right. There was a row of sort of sapling trees down there, and he was next to one ball in the rough. And he had probably 190 yards, and to the front of the green was probably only about 160 yards to cover the water. And he hit 9 iron that out of the rough, just jumped. He was adrenalized, flew just shy of the hole and ran to the back edge, 20 feet or so, made that to win. The following year, we went back to the golf course, recreated the shot. What was different was the trees were taller, the rough was the same. We faked the whole location in the back. He hit the same club flat out, and the ball landed short of the water that was on the front of the green. So it probably went 150 something in the air. That speaks to what I get to watch these guys on Sunday afternoon, and how if you are comparing yourself to that, you're comparing yourself to these guys that are essentially at the time superhuman because they're at the highest of their skills and they adrenalized and stuff is they're just going kind of flat out. It's crazy.
Yeah, totally. I find that the best players I play with, like we were talking about this the other day on the show, like it's not that my co-host has a better short game than me. Like he does. But when you actually unpack how he's thinking versus how I'm thinking, it's night and day, and therefore he has a better short game. He's thinking about the lie. He's understanding through his practice swings if the plan he has is going to work. And this is a D1 college player, scratch player. He's picking a spot. He knows trajectory. He has more understanding of spin. And so he is getting all this information and making his decision and then going. Where a mid single digit to a 10 plus is probably not thinking about the lie at all. They're probably thinking about technique,
Mm-hmm.
or they're probably thinking about what they don't want to happen. And
Sure.
that's an entirely different
It is.
short game approach.
Uh-huh.
And therefore, my co host has a much better short game than me, but it's not necessarily because he's gifted with his motion. There's some of that, but a lot of it is in how he's approaching the shot. And I think the pros are that on steroids, their ability to understand conditions and the lies and their bodies and tendencies and patterns. It's truly amazing.
It truly is. Well, with that, how about we go to the next one? I'm jumping down your list to Dr. Bhrett McCabe, who is
Yeah.
was some of the very best. Um,
Yeah.
Across all sports, he's been on the show a few times. He's written a few books. Brett to me is kind of like just logical genius
Yeah.
as he approaches sports psychology. So, what was it that you learned from Brett?
So I actually flew out to see Brett. We shot a video together where I was really, really struggling. And one thing that Brett taught me that I think this one, maybe more than anyone, applies to life more than any of these
Yeah.
is Brett talks a lot about playing with your C game instead of hoping you had your A game.
Okay.
And I think this is what the pros do so well. And this is probably what leads to the guys on the tour having more top tens or winning more often is if you think about our experience, because after all, if we say we love the game, to my point about Dr. Bob Rotella at the beginning, but every time we go to the course, we're having a terrible time. This one might be the biggest reason because if I'm hoping for something else the entire 4 to 5 hours, then I'm not having a good time at all. I'm not embracing what I have at all.
Mhm.
But if I'm aware enough to say, yeah, it's a weird game, right? Body feels weird. It's a little cold. The club feels a little foreign in my hand. So instead of feeling really down that I just don't have it today, and instead of worrying how I'm going to fix it, how can I play with what I have? What do I have? What do I feel even 5% okay with versus totally terrible about?
Mhm.
And maybe let's go with that, right? Maybe I take more club and I swing softer. Maybe I put it back in my stance and swing a little bit harder, right? Like maybe I don't hit driver off the tee. Maybe I take bigger targets and I'm trying to going back to the percentages play. Maybe I need to play even bigger percentages because I know I don't have it. And I think you really just have to get clear. What do you want to do today? Do you want to hit amazing shots or do you want to shoot a score? A lot of times you can't have both. So if you just want to hit some awesome shots and that's what's giving you that fun throughout the day, then throw away the scorecard. Don't feel bad at the end of the round when you shoot an 88. So if you're going to care about what that number is at the end, then you got to listen to Bhrett McCabe and embrace whatever game you have. Or you're just there to try and hit hero shots, and that's okay too. But you
Mhm.
can't have it both ways.
Yeah, you're preaching, brother. You remind me of an interaction I had with Nick Faldo, legend of the game.
Hmm.
And I was in the booth with him. I was doing some tower announcing, and he was the analyst. So I'm looking across the booth at him. I was in the super tower, and I called a shot, and he leans back in his chair with his hands in his head like this, exasperated, and he starts mouthing to me across the room. He's like, "They don't have another plan." He goes, "They are
Mm,
planning for their A game, and they've never ever practiced their B, C, and D games."
mm.
Your point. And this is Felder going, they didn't have another plan. Their plan was for everything to work out. Now stuff's going wrong and they got no idea, which is exactly what you say.
Yeah. And I'll call out someone else, John Sherman. I don't know if you've had him on your
Yeah,
show,
big
host of
time.
The Sweet Spot, and wrote a great book. But he did a YouTube video recently that I thought really helps amateur golfers with this concept, which is instead of what he calls zombie range sessions of just raking, hitting, no target, just kind of, a monotonous, repetitive thing, which you obviously never do on the golf course. His his proposal was experiment and challenge yourself with different things. So, can I hit a draw? Can I hit a fade? And by the way, not to be able to hit a draw and a fade, just to understand what do I need to do to produce a certain flight so that you educate yourself on your own feels and your own abilities. Another thing is, can I hit it off the toe? Can I hit it off the heel? Oh, interesting. When I try and hit it off the toe, I hit it in the middle. So what is that teaching me about my patterns and my abilities? And to John's point, having that knowledge, and I need to go do this myself, but having that knowledge gives you backup plans of, oh, okay, so yeah, it's feeling really off and I'm hitting it off the toe. I remember from my sessions that this feel of trying to hit a draw when I normally hit a fade helps me hit it closer to the middle. So that's going to be my feel today until I can go back and work on a few things. Right. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, in that book, because I had John on this show before he was a superstar.
Hmm.
Um, and then he wrote the book. I can't remember the title, but in
Four
there,
foundations of golf.
that foundations. In the introduction, he quoted me because I said, because I saw some of his stuff, and I was like, a lot of the things you're teaching people are stuff that's sitting there. It's hidden in plain sight. They all know it, but they don't know it.
Yeah.
No, and it's amazing as you talk and you talking there, you're like, well, maybe I should do this. Because when we really just start to talk about this stuff and unpack it, we're like, oh hell yeah, that makes sense. Why the hell am I not doing this sort of stuff? It's
Right.
crazy, isn't it?
Right. 100%. Yeah, I think it's easy to your point about how many of us are planning for the perfect and just working on swing positions to try and hit it perfectly. But the second I'm under pressure on the golf course, I'm a different person anyways than that person on the driving range. So that would be a much more productive session and it's more fun to be out there and experiment of understanding like what do I need to do to produce this? I think when he first said it, I was like, well, obviously, I'm trying to hit it in the middle of the face every time, but I don't, But I think understanding how to hit it, can I hit it off the toe? Can I hit it off the heel? What do I do to do that? That's a really interesting thing that I've never actually done that I think I need to.
Yeah. Well, it's the quickest way to try and fix a shank or a toe
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
It's logical but true.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to show you another professional segue. You
Okay.
talked about discovery, experimentation. Colin Morikawa, who is Rick Sessinghaus' most famous student,
Hmm.
has been on here. He's spoken of self-discovery upon, after the tutelage of Rick. And you've got Rick Sessinghaus as one of your best lessons you've ever learned. What was that?
Yeah, so I actually drove so I live in Los Angeles. I drove to Burbank across the town, which is like a road trip if you're in LA. It's far from me. And I met Rick at his club and we did a playing lesson.
All
Now,
right.
Rick's been on the show many times, but this is my first time truly being able to see what he did with Colin growing up and how he walks someone through a playing lesson.
All right.
And this is on YouTube, I think, but it was the most hilarious thing. And I have a mental game podcast and I did this. So I'm pretty sure everyone probably makes these mistakes. I
Yeah.
get on the first tee with no warm up. And by the way, my most scared shot is the shot I've struggled with the most is off the tee with the driver. So I'm staring at the most narrow fairway par five I've ever seen. It almost reminds me of the 18th at Augusta, just tree line, super narrow, no warm up. I was just in the car for an hour and a half. I'm on camera with Rick Sessinghaus, and he asks me, "What's a good shot look like here?" And I use language like, "Well, maybe, I think, I hope." I hope it starts left and I hope it maybe comes back to the right. And he stops me every time. It was almost embarrassing how many non-clear words and language I used. I didn't get clear on what a good shot looked like at all. I got clear on what I was hoping would happen with zero conviction or confidence. And he taught me, no, you need to get really clear on what the good one looks like. So tell me with conviction what you're going to do here and what a good shot looks like here. And I said, okay, Rick, you see that tree 10 yards left of the green? I am going to hit my drive at that tree
Hmm.
and it's going to fade 5 yards in the middle of the fairway. And he goes, okay. And so I was using so many filler words of I think it might go left. I hope it doesn't go too far right. But if it does, I was already projecting all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Now, that's not saying that I think I'm going to talk myself into hitting perfect shots, but I think it speaks to the lesson of our brain needs clear direction. I don't know about you, Mark, but when I start my day not knowing what I need to do, those days are my least productive days.
No, no doubt.
When I start my day with three things that I know I have to do, I'm productive as hell.
Hmm.
And I think that's the same way golf works. You got to know what you're trying to do.
Well, I would build on that, and I'd love your commentary after. Not just the filler words like might and maybe and all that sort of stuff, hope for. Um, man, I can't putt. I'm the worst putter in the world.
Hmm.
I can't hit my driver. That sort of stuff. That's as debilitating as those filler words, perhaps even more so, because in terms of the brain signaling,
Yeah.
you're basically telling the brain. And we've had Mike Gravlos on the show a couple of times. Basically has studied how the brain works in golf, written a book about it. He's like the brain responds to clear goals. So to your clarity, conviction, purpose, and stuff, I can't putt. Yeah, as soon as you get a putter in your hand, so you're not going to do it right. If you do, it's
Right.
accident.
Well, the funny thing about that point, Mark, is a lot of people think, yeah, well, positive thinking is just telling myself a lie because I have enough evidence that I do suck at putting. But it's funny. I just got off a podcast this morning with Dr. Joe Parent again, and we brought on Carol Priscilla, who's a golf creator and has openly talked about her struggles with putting. And we realized at the end, okay, so Carol actually getting curious about not, oh, I suck at putting after making another three putt, but the positivity actually just keeps her battery charged a little bit longer
Mhm.
so that she has the energy to then think about what happened there. Dr. Joe said, oh, that was weird. That's not how I normally putt. What did I do? Oh, I got caught up in the needing to make it instead of changing my job to getting it started and rolling it over my spot.
Hmm.
And when I get caught up in what it means and making it and all of the embarrassment, I picked up and I got quick and I tried to guide it.
Yeah.
So that's not sucking at putting. I just got away from my routine. So I'm just going to go back and on the next putt, just focus on my routine. Now, again, easier said than done, but it's certainly easier to do when you start with a positive statement that doesn't trigger all of the old memories and make you feel terrible and want to walk with your head down for the rest of the round.
Yeah. Brilliant. Hey, to shoot 54, you got to birdie every hole. Hmm?
Hmm.
So that means you've either chipped in or you've made putts.
Yeah.
Uh, you've got Lynn, Marriott, and Pierre Nilsson on you, founders of Vision 54. They've coached many stars. Annika Sorenstam, probably the belle of their ball. What is the lesson that you take from those two ladies?
So this lesson is for anyone who says, yeah, but I got to focus on my swing.
Okay, right.
Like,
Mhm.
right? They taught me that go ahead. If you want to focus on your swing, make sure it's sensory, not positional. So I think this was Sam Snead. Sam Snead's sensory feel was be an oil can. He's made out of oil. His whole swing is made out of oil.
Okay.
And that was a feel and a visualization and almost a feelization, if that's a thing, to walk into the shot trying to achieve that, right? Staying in my posture, swinging 80%, that type of stuff. I think that is incredibly helpful,
Hmm.
especially when you're under pressure. What I get in trouble with, as well as anyone, is I get focused on checkpoints and more than one checkpoint. And I think that's how I play golf. Now, I'm not going to belabor that point. It's golf
Yeah.
swing versus golf. We've all heard it. But I found that this went a level deeper. And it was like, if you want to focus on your swing, go ahead. Because it's hard to tell someone who's thought about their swing every round for 20 years and tell them, don't think about your swing. The next time they play, it's like, is I've literally experienced it. It's panic. It's like
Yeah.
I have no idea what to focus on. Are you crazy? I'm not going to be able to hit the ball.
Hmm.
But if I have a sensory key, that's more productive because it's something our brain can work with versus limiting our natural motor pattern and athletic movement. So go sensory, not positional is hugely helpful for people.
And sensory, I want to say to folks that don't limit that to just feeling. Um, David Ledbetter is a mentor to me. He's worked with the best of the very best, including Faldo. And he's like, Faldo was tremendously auditory. Like,
Hmm.
like David would give him a concept, something to do, and then they'd turn into like squat through transition, like sit and swing. He'd give him like two words, and Faldo would go sit and swing, and he'd almost make it into like a song with some sort of sound involved. And he Ledbetter would joke. He'd go, Nick would be walking down the middle of the fairway in the middle of a major championship, kind of whistling a tune to himself or repeating this mantra almost, where it's not necessarily something you feel, it's something you hear or something you sense or something, maybe a sight, seeing a target line differently, whatever the case may be. It could be anything. It's not necessarily just in your hands and your feet.
Yeah, I've had many tour pros tell me that they've shot 62s when a song got stuck in their head. You
Mm.
know, it's amazing. I think there's real science behind humming reduces stress and gets your brain into another state. But that's a great one. I've never heard that with Faldo. That's cool.
He's always making sounds, clicks, and all sorts of stuff. Right. We've got Joe Perrin, Dr. Joe Perrin. We've had Rick Sessinghaus. We've had Bhrett McCabe, Lynn and Pia. And then, of course, there's the grandfather of all sports psychology, Dr. Bob Rotella.
Yeah.
To this day, still the most popular podcast I've had. And we did this ages ago. I need,
Ours too.
I need to get him back because the guy's kind of the doyen of the whole thing. So, what did you
Yeah.
learn from Dr. Bob?
Now, here's the funny thing about you bringing up Dr. Bob after the ladies at Vision 54. He would disagree with
Yeah.
number four. He asked me, he goes, Evan, I heard you played baseball growing up. I said, yes, sir. From St. Louis, baseball's life.
Yeah.
Okay. He goes, okay, I'm going to toss you this ball and I want you to throw this ball over that tree. Go ahead. And I go, visualize it. I go, okay. He goes, did you think about your elbow? Did you think about your shoulder angle? Or did you look at the top of the tree and you threw it over it?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I would just probably look at the top of the tree and throw it over. Now, this one I've really struggled with
Mm-hmm.
because I've had times where I felt like I absolutely, yeah, I understand, Dr. Bob, but I have to think about this thing or I won't do it.
Yeah.
And then I've had so many moments, Mark, where I black out and I'm in a round that I've hit so many poor shots, off the course, penalty stroke shots. And I truly feel like I black out. I look at where I'm hitting it. I don't think about anything. And I somehow hit the best shot of the day. And there is real power in what I've heard in other, like the mental golf type training system that I've been trained in. It's about being target side versus player side is what they call it. And when you get external and you just really focus, again, depends on your personality, doesn't work for everybody, but if you get really external and focused on your target and you kind of see it and then you go, if you're someone that gets really stuck in mechanics, it can actually be really helpful.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to do over and over when you've had years and years of getting player side and stuck in your swing. But that one, Bob really wants them to be an athlete. And you've heard Rory talk about putting like a kid and all of that stuff. He told me, I don't want mindfulness. I want mindlessness. I don't want you thinking about anything.
Here's what I will say because I know him personally. I was around teaching my brother when Dr. Bob was working with him. And I would say that he is the expert on the PGA Tour because with those guys that have a really good control of where the club face is, he can look at them and say, hit it over there, and they can. But there's no amount of mindlessness and visualization that's going to overcome a severely shut or open club face of contact.
Right.
Not going to happen. Accidentally, it might. Like you say, I had blackout. All of a sudden, I had a good shot. That's just when all of your swing issues have sort of aligned for the
Right.
greater good and it's worked out.
Right.
So I'm completely on board there. And I will say this, I'll almost modify this if you would permit me. Because again, I've got the utmost respect for Dr. Barber. It's like when you're playing well, you got to be mindless.
Yeah.
When you're struggling a little bit, you got to have something you can go to, and then that go to must be mindless as well. Like you have to have developed a shot, to your point, and this is where we got to the C game. So there's
Yep.
overlap. So if you like, my C game preparation is a stinger off the tee, like Woods. He could hit that thing in his sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a shot he could go to. There was kind of the lifeline. It's going to keep me, it's going to get this sinking ship back in the port kind of deal.
Yep.
And you can be mindless over that. So I feel like that's where there are elements to like your golf swing's validity that allows you to be mindless.
Yeah. And
I cannot tell an 18 handicap to go out there and go, oh, just swing free.
right.
No, it'll work once or twice, but over the long haul, it won't. You got to know kind of where your club face is, what you have to do to, again, you've said this, to hit the ball a certain way. And if you've got that, go there. Just
Yeah.
hit the ball a certain way and then do the right things to make as low a score as possible doing that and being mindless in that vein.
Yeah. And what I didn't even sum up the lesson in one line. It was essentially focusing on the where, not the how.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing for an 18 handicap, though, thinking about devil's advocate here is what I think Dr. Bob is getting at is an 18 handicap going out and thinking about three checkpoints to get their club face in a better position might put them at a detriment
Yes.
to swinging with more fluidity and freedom, and therefore might bring the dispersion of misses in, right? It's a better alternative
Mm-hmm.
than getting too technical. But I think your point is well taken. It's not necessarily a fix all, but I think it's essentially speaking to us going on the range and working on something is not the same as going out and playing golf,
Yeah.
right? And there's ways to go to the range and treat it more like see shot, hit shot, right? Um, but I think a lot of us probably get caught up more in the how than the where.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a
sure.
spectrum.
Yeah, I would argue that out of all the sports, bat and ball sports there are, golf is probably the most coached one.
Yep.
It's the only bat and ball sport where you only hit the ball right on the end of your bat. Every other one, you're striking the ball a bit closer to your hands. It's like, so if I'm tossing a ball, yeah, I've lived on the end of my hand for 54 years. I know if I move it X, the ball's going to go Y kind of deal. But as soon as
Right.
you add the extension to me, then the bets are off. So there's a lot of instruction to golf. But then I play tennis, then you'll see some person struggling with their forehand. And then the coach will say, hey, just, swing over the top of the ball a bit more. And all of a sudden, the ball that's sailing out turns into topspin. Now they're focusing on that because it works.
Right.
So I'd almost go further as the instructor who knows a lot about the mental game and the emotionality of the human being. I'm like, you've got to find the sweet spot between the instruction and the mental game. And for some people, it'll be more visualization. For other person, it'll be a little less. But I feel like if you're completely in one camp or completely in the other, sort of on the other side of the bell curve, that's when stuff gets a little inconsistent.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this blends together, right? I think
Yeah, of course.
Rick's lesson of getting clear on what a good shot looks like here is very in line with
Mhm.
focus on the where, not the how,
Yeah.
right? So I think if the lesson is simply giving your brain clear direction on what you're trying to do so that your brain and your motor patterns can do it for you is a super effective tool than walking into the shot not thinking about what you're trying to do at all. So your brain is like, wait, what's happening here?
Hmm.
And then you're focused on three positions and you're also focused on what not to do, right? That's a totally different situation and probably
Yeah.
going to have a totally worse outcome.
Well, I think I could package this all, and I'd love your insights. At its root, golf is a game of distance and direction,
Hmm.
and it's a game of spin. And as far as the spin goes, the ball spins faster and more than any other ball sport there is. And if any golfer, no matter the skill station in the game, understands like how to spin the thing and how spin can actually straighten shots, then you can be a little bit more mindless. As if to say, instead of just sending the ball there, it's like, how's it going to get there? Is it going to go in
Right.
or along the ground? Is it going to spin from right to left or left to right? Then it gives you somewhere you can sort of go, as opposed to like trying to get this club face to square up with a target line at 90 miles an hour on an uneven lie. I mean, your chances are minuscule.
Right.
But if you're going in there with like, okay, I'm going to try and slice this ball, so I'll aim left, the face is going to be open, and I'm going to curve it that way, you're kind of removing one side of the target. So then it makes the target play a little wider, and then you can sort of be a little bit more free.
Yeah. Can we end today, Mark, with giving you a bonus lesson?
Shoot.
So I learned this from my personal coach. It is by far the most important lesson I've probably learned, and it totally transforms having the worst time in my life to having a great time. And
All
it can be used on the golf course and it can be used at a dinner party. It can be used anywhere.
right.
So I'm going to ask you a question. When you go to a party and you don't know anyone, think about the feeling of being the guest, right? Think about like, ooh, am I gonna do these people like me? Am I going to be stuck in the corner not talking to anybody? Are people going to notice that I'm not talking to anybody? I'm stuck in small talk right now. I don't like this conversation,
Awkward.
right? That
Yeah.
is the feeling of the guest.
Okay.
Now, Mark, when you have a party and you're the host, and there's people there you might not know, maybe it's a friend of a friend, maybe it's a spouse you haven't met. What's the experience like as the host?
You're busy doing a lot of greeting and connecting people. You're essentially functional. You
You're
don't.
taking it upon yourself to go up to them
Yes,
and say,
exactly.
is there anything I can get you?
Hmm.
Right? Can I refill your plate? Can I grab you a drink? Oh, I heard you love this show. My husband or wife loves that too, right? Being the host, not the guest, has been such a game changer for me, especially in golf, because I feel like it is so easy to play golf like the guest. I'm worried about what everybody thinks. I'm trying to impress them. I feel like I'm not a part of the group when everybody else is in the fairway and I'm in the trees all day, right? We've all experienced it.
Hmm.
But the second I act like the host, I'm asking them about their game. I'm complimenting their swing. I'm digging into what they did on that chip shot or asking them about work or asking them it is such a powerful thing to get out of everything about me and focus on them.
Mm.
And it's such a tool to get ourselves out of our own way and not be the victim and need to be accepted and instead take care of them because at the end of the day, everyone has said it, but in the moment, it's really hard to accept it. Everyone's thinking about them, anyways.
Hmm.
So to take it upon yourself to make sure they feel welcome and pump them up is such a great way to distract us from our own ego.
Brilliant. Folks, this is why you need to go and listen to Evan and what they do, he and Matt, on the Par Train podcast. So, with that, please share for folks, Evan, where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, wherever you listen or watch content, just search at the Par Train and we'll be there.
How about your social media? Is there a website as well?
Yeah, at the Part Train. Instagram's our biggest following, but we're on TikTok and Twitter or X now at the Part Train. Thepartrain.com has stuff about my coaching and different stuff. And we're doing more on YouTube as well. And obviously the podcast, I think the most popular is probably Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So wherever they listen, we'll be there.
You are doing yeoman's work. I'm so glad we got to do this. This is an avenue of the game that, as a lifelong golf teacher, coach, I really appreciate, because I'm realizing more and more that we humans who play golf, we're not golfers who do life. You know
Yeah.
that, and to your thing, I love it. Be the host, don't be the guest at your golf game. That is the real truth, and that's something that anybody, whether they are professional listening to this or a rank beginner, we can all take that, because we all know how to, what we feel like when you walk in there and you're like, oh shucks. I hate those events. I absolutely hate them.
Mark, I went to a wedding. We'll finish with this. I went to a wedding where I knew one person and I was the host all weekend. And I was like, and it wasn't necessarily comfortable at first. I had to kind of push myself to do it. It was by far the most eye-opening experience. I was asking, "Oh, who do you know? How do you know the groom or the bride, you know? Oh, where do you live in?" And I felt like I wasn't even myself. I was like, "Who was that guy?" That guy had a blast and he knew nobody. And I was going up to everybody else. And the funny thing is, I used to think, oh, what if I get rejected? What if they don't want to talk to me anymore? I didn't realize that it is the utmost confidence of walking up to a group and inserting yourself into that conversation and asking how everybody is and asking questions. And I love asking questions. So I just treated everything like a podcast and it was great.
As a college coach, okay, I'm going to wrap now, but as a college coach, I always used to say to my teams, you need to be that guy. Be that guy that people say, they get in the van, they're like, I played with that guy who made everything he looked at. Now I'm going to change that to be that guy who walks onto the tee going, "Man, I got this. I'm not going to stress. I'm not the victim." Be
Yeah.
that guy. What a great, I think that might become the title of this podcast too. Evan, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing all this wisdom that you've collected over all the years you've done this. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And look, I struggle with all of this stuff every time I play. And ironically, as the show's gotten more popular, I've struggled more because of the expectations and identifying with these concepts, right? And so I think that's what our show's about. Our show's about helping people get out of their own way. And we say, if you can smile through bad golf, you can smile through anything. So that's the point of all this.